thanks everyone for being here, and we're so grateful to have this opportunity to share this with you. What we are here to talk about is writing your F.I.R.E story. A lot of us face these situations in life where we're not really living our own story. We're kind of following someone else's story, and it leaves us into a place where things might be right, but they just don't feel completely right all the way. And so for us, finding financial independence was a huge, monumental achievement in our lives, but we got there, and it didn't solve all of our problems. And so we actually had to go back and examine our stories that we both inherited and then we created it for ourselves, and find out how we could maybe solve that problem.
As far as stories go, I have a lot of experience with them through teaching. And what I learned from that was that there are really only a few plots out there, and those plots just get recycled over and over in the various stories we read. So an illustration of one of the simplest is this one. There is a main character. They really want something, and something seems to get in the way. And so I taught this over and over, saw it click in 5-year-olds, to 9, 10-year-olds' minds, helped them in school, but for some reason, I was never able to let it click in my mind, to use it kind of as an example for the choices and the life that I was living, kind of like hold it over the story of my life like tracing paper. And so in an effort to do that, just as an example, I'll show you. Let's meet our first main character. Here she is. Oh, yeah, sure. So like 2 days on either side of 18 here. She has all of these ideas of who she is, this whole narrative she's created, right? Based on her life's events, the people in her life, people that really matter to her, but a lot of people that she doesn't even know or don't matter to her, what she's capable of, not capable of, what's available to her, what's off limits. And so based on that, she has this idea of what she really wants, right? But like so many of us, especially at that age, it's not from a place of self-awareness. So obviously that's me. I can quit referring to myself in the third person, but yeah, what I really wanted was not what I knew I really wanted. And now looking back, I can see that what I really wanted was safety, right? And so I just want to show this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I know how many teachers there are in this crowd, so it's super obvious, but this is going from the base, the most basic of needs to what we all hopefully want to reach eventually, which is transcendence. And my greatest hope, unconsciously, was safety. So you can see how low that is on that scale. And I had this whole story of what safety meant, again, not from a place of self-awareness, but that I just didn't need to depend on anyone. So my path there, you might have maybe big dreams for me or goals, but mine was just that I get a college education so I could have a stable paycheck. I didn't really have any aspirations about how much. And that I had a safe car because I had car problems, my car break down. I needed a car that would get me where I wanted to go, so I didn't need to rely on anyone else. And that was it for safety, right? So I got my fancy teaching degree. Graduated in December, which is a weird time to graduate for teachers. So my first teaching job was whatever I could get. It was part-time. Base pay was $21,000 a year. So I'm making half of that. So quickly getting other jobs, but you can sense I'm not making a lot of money. And I get my dream car, and all of my problems are solved, right? So this was my first car that I bought myself. The windows rolled down like this, right? So this is how fancy it was. So I can barely pay the bills. I don't have trash service. I'm collecting my trash, taking it to my job. I don't have TV or cable. I just work all the time anyway and watch VHSs when I have time. And I have student loans, and I have this really fancy car and this amazing job, and somehow I'm not happy, right? It's not everything I thought it would be. So I thought like the answer to all my problems then was to just work super hard and get really good, be better, do better, right? And then I would be really happy. So I just keep leveling up like that. Find a husband, have a child, and every time I go to put my daughter in this fancy car to take her to daycare before I go to work, I bump my head on the car and I bump her head as she's leaning down. And so there could be a million things I decide I really want, but what I thought would really solve all of my problems at this point was this.
New car.
Another one, right? This one's actually sitting out there in the parking lot, still have it today. And you may already know this, but this did not solve all my problems. And now my story begins to look like this repeating cycle, right? I really want something, but I really want something, but, and I can't figure out why I'm not feeling or getting what it is I want to get or feel. And because there are a lot of parents here. How many of you have heard of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, that book? Chris is like, no one's heard of that book. You can't use that as an example, right? So I'm just like this little mouse, like after cookie, and it's actually quite a sad story at this point, right? Outside it looks great because I'm like perfect wife, perfect mom, perfect teacher. So this is where you might think that I would say like, finally, we found financial independence and it solved all of our problems. But it's a really big but.
It's a really big but. So, yeah, Debbie made me put this in there. So yeah, I alluded to this at the very beginning. Like, how many of you have checked a lot of boxes, but something still feels like a little bit off? Like you've got the promotions, you've got a great wife, you've got 2 kids. I see some hands, but there's still something inside of you that doesn't quite feel like you're maybe winning. For Debbie, you know, she'd got her cars, she got her education, she got her teaching job, all of those things were going well, but there's still like this inner turmoil, this like dis-ease, and so I felt that, Debbie felt that, and so we hit this financial independence situation. It did not solve all of those problems. It was just another one of those, we wanted something, we got that something, and it's like, uh-oh, ... what's next? Do we try to fill it in with something else? And I think for us, we had to go back in time. We had to examine, why does this happen? And so I came up with my own theory. I have a 17-year-old daughter at home. She's getting ready to become a senior. She's going to graduate. And I just feel like the anxiety just like rolling off of her, of like the pressure of what she's going to do with her life and everything. And here is Deb and I, also at the age of 17, 18, about the same age as my daughter Claire. And I think it's a little audacious that we ask, 17 and 18-year-olds this one question: what are you going to be for the rest of your life? What are you going to do? Which is going to be that snowball that answers all of the other questions later in life. But we asked that question once when these kids are 18 years old, and do these 2 look like they have anything in their lives figured out right now? We kind of had a debate on like, what were we doing in this? And I came up with another theory. So I was just pretty sure, man, she is so into me right now. Like, I am the guy. I'm hugging this chick, and she's like, Zima! And so I know we've got some millennials out here, so I apologize real quick. Zima is a malted alcoholic beverage brewed by the Coors Brewing Company in 1993. Had a heyday in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yeah. Skittles in the Zima? No, did not even know that. Yeah. Yeah, so if we're following my theory here, if asking 18-year-olds what to do for the rest of their life and have it all figured out by choosing the right career, the right college, all of those things right out of the gate, if that's not the right answer, then perhaps we can find a better answer, and it maybe is more helpful if we develop a framework and we have a framework that we can use. And since we all like a good story, a good book, a good movie, why not use the framework that's already been laid out there for us? So that's what That's what we believe will be helpful, is to, as we're looking at financial independence, we got there, there's still some things off. What can we do? Maybe let's use this framework, and that's exactly what we did. So first, let me go into some of the key elements that a lot of people agree make a good story. And so the first thing that you need to have is like a story question. Like, this needs to be this overarching question of who this hero is, who this character is, and will they get this thing that they really want, or will they solve this problem? Will they defuse the bomb before it blows up and kills all these innocent people? And if you have a great story question, and if you can apply that to your life, and if you can take some time to apply that, it allows for what's called narrative traction. And narrative traction is just another way that writers and screenwriters and movie producers, they create intrigue and engagement, within that story. And what happens is the audience pays attention, the audience stays intrigued, they want to know what happens next, and they continue to do that. And I think that's we're starting to get closer to what we should do. Is we need to start off with a good story question and then continue to build that engagement by continuing to build that awareness of, are we feeling like we're on this intriguing, engaging story, or do we get off track from time to time? And so those are two really good things, but we also need to know about the character. I think we all start with the role of the victim. Like, I think every one of us at some point in life experiences shit in life because life can be hard. And so that's unfortunate. Like, maybe it's abuse, maybe it's the loss of a parent, maybe it's just never having money in your household and all of that. And so we all naturally are victims, and so we feel like victims. But then there's two paths you can take from that place of victimhood. You can begin to gain skills and power, but still feel like a victim, still feel like the locus of control and agency is not within your control, and then you actually begin to adopt a lot of the characteristics of the villain. And spoiler alert, that's probably not the role that we want to be going down, is to become the villain. Instead, if we take the other path of starting out as a victim, but continuing to ask ourselves questions and actually finding good guides along our path, then I think we can accomplish those things and live that life that feels more fulfilling, more authentic, more in alignment with ourselves. And so I'm going to do some quick analogies and examples, just so everyone knows that what we're talking about here. So first we got this guy. He's our hero of the book or the movie, and he's got a problem. He's got this really mean guy that's standing in the way of what he wants. And And so then we have the story question, like, will he get there in time? Will he save the day? And so that keeps us engaged and intrigued. We want to know what else. And, will he get the girl? Sorry, Luke, but that's actually your sister. So maybe be a little careful there. And then while not making stupid purchases along the way, we gotta make sure that happens. So we have those story questions. It creates that narrative traction. We have intrigue and engagement in our own lives or in our lives. We, of course, have to meet a guide that's going to help us to understand what we must do. They have all the wisdom and experience. They can impart it. And if we use all of those things, we will be able to save the day. I got one more example. This is even a more well-known one. So first we have our hero. And so he, of course, has a problem too. Like, he's got this asshole boss that's just requiring, all of his time and just never treats him right and everything. So then we have these story questions. Will he get there in time? Will he make it? And will he keep the girl along this journey? While not making stupid purchases along the way. And so, I don't know if, he didn't avoid that. But of course, for the hero to be able to do this, he has to meet a guide that will eventually allow him to save the day. So.
All right, so using those lovely examples, it's clear it was time for me, as the example of our first main character, to change plots. And I find the hero's journey that Chris explained to us to be a good example to change plots to. So, did everyone have a chance to read that? Or does anyone need me to read it out loud? Okay. So here's where we meet our first main character again, stuck in this cycle. And this is also where we meet the hero in the hero's journey. When they're down, their lowest point, that's the time that the hero arrives, right? And so the problem with my story was it was just like a bunch of beginnings. It was incomplete. And then there's no narrative traction. There's not a great question being posed. So what I needed was a middle. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through the hero's journey, what my middle was like here. And Joseph Campbell doesn't say this, but I say the first step was awareness. And I think we all have opportunities at awareness where we quit just unconsciously listening to and following the stories that we've created for ourselves or been told. We become aware of those. We actually listen to those. And so some of the things in my path that did that were chronic illness, autoimmune disease. I didn't really listen right away, right? Then a conversation with a coworker that helped me realize I didn't need more money. I just wanted more time. So little bits along the way until finally we're at financial independence and I'm actually at my lowest point. So that's just awareness, just starting to notice and also know I want to change that script. And all heroes are called to adventure. So you might think this is like Carl's 1500 Days of Freedom or Luke Skywalker's Death Star, right? But it's a little less like romantic than that. This is really the dealing with your shit part of the story. So you can do that while you're like learning to surf or scaling mountains or buying your fancy Acura, which is all good. And you can answer your call to adventure and learn about yourself through that. But this is really just accepting the challenge to actually do the deeper work of whatever it is you haven't been getting to by acquiring something or achieving something or looking for something outside yourself. And if you really want to change it, it's really hard to do that on your own, right? So every hero needs a guide. For me, the guides were like in books and podcasts at first, TED Talks. So like think really woo-woo. I'm listening to Brene Brown. I'm watching TED Talks by Glennon Doyle Melton. I'm really getting to the bottom of what got me to this place. Eventually, my guides are also my doctors, people I know and care about, a chiropractor, a woman who like introduced me to Reiki, lots of stuff that may not be something you're all into, but we all need guides. We can find them in so many places if we look.
CampFI being a great
Exactly. I've met many guides here and still a great part of my life. So, and finally, our hero approaches their innermost cave and goes through the muck and mire. It's like finding out what that deeper thing is, getting to the bottom of it. And when that happens, our hero gets to have an ending. And so Joseph Campbell would say the ending is like returning home with the elixir. So just coming home. And what we've learned is like coming home is really coming home to yourself, right? Chris likes to call it like going back to your wild self or your true, most authentic nature. That's the ending, going home.
Yeah, so, and as Debbie was mentioning there in the middle, it's the awareness was key, meeting the right guides at the right time by being vulnerable enough to either put yourself out there and being humble enough to ask for help. Those were all very key in us both getting to financial independence, but also filling in that journey for our heroic journey of life beyond F.I.R.E. and getting to know how to find that meaning and that fulfillment and easing some of that kind of inner turmoil that we were feeling. So, yeah, the overall story arc of every good story is you got a clear beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's where I think I want to take a couple of seconds here on this slide. We become aware of some of our things in the middle. So like in our beginning, we're starting to just chase those things. They're bringing us short-term satisfaction, a little hedonic treadmill type of action, but it's not really getting us ultimately where we want to go. So in the middle, on Debbie's slide here, we answer some of those calls to adventure, and we start to do some of that deeper inner work of like finding out who we are, and some of those deeper questions that we don't really ask ourselves. We definitely don't find that out at 18 as we're trying to plot, the next 60 years of our lives. So we have to meet those guides, and we have to explore those innermost caves. And like Debbie said, that's the shit work, that's the hard work, that's the deep work, that thankfully financial independence did give us more hours in the day to do that. But again, it was still, we had to muster that courage to do some of that work. We're still in many ways in the middle, and I love to like the idea of over here, like this is the climb, this is the hero's climb up the mountain. I love climbing mountains, but it's a great metaphor. So if this is the climb, sure, maybe someday we do reach that ultimate level of transcendence that Maslow talks about, but I think it's in this journey right here that's where the magic happens. It's in this journey of you coming to CampFI, you buying that ticket, you having that conversation, you being open enough and vulnerable enough to share your authentic story, that's where those transformations that are ultimately going to happen. And so we have the beginning, we have the middle, as the hero, matures and continues to go, he starts as the victim, he begins to take agency of his own life, or she, and they meet the guides along the way. They benefit from their wisdom, from their experience, and they then become, the hero of their story. But this is no Kanye and Kim picture this time.
The best stories always have a twist at the end, right?
Yeah. So I think there's one more twist, and I think this is another path that I feel called to right now is, sure, you may become a hero of your own story, and that's great. Maybe you get financial independence. Maybe you pay down that student debt. Maybe you buy that first rental property. Maybe you attack those things that are a part of your story and on your journey. But I think there's even a bigger aspirational place to be than the hero, and that's the place of a guide. And so then I think once you are able to be a hero, have that wisdom, have that experience, and you can then begin to transcend and become a guide for some other hero that's out there today that has been a victim, that has been dealt a shitty hand by life, and you can help them to get to that next level. And this is all new to us. We're at that place in life where, part of our fulfillment and meaning, I think, involves trying new things that hopefully make one tiny bit of difference for someone else and help them on their heroic journey so they can even do even cooler things than I've ever dreamed of doing.